All right, we can get started. People will come in.
Okay.
So I wanted to thank all of you for coming on board. This is Hops Lockdown number 10, actually, believe it or not. So this is the 10th one of these. And tonight we have Dave Lotti, who is the founder of Rhode Island Thunder, Bob Rossi, who is the Rhode Island Thunder recruiting coordinator, and Elise Fortier, assistant coach on Lotti 18U Thunder. So I wanted to thank you all for coming on board.
Thanks for having us, Matt.
So our main topic tonight is going to be college recruiting and more from a softball slant. And there are some subtle differences in baseball and softball when it comes to the very fine details, but just the overall theme for both sports, I think, will be useful for parents and players. But for the most part, any questions that you might have from a baseball standpoint, go to baseball, but this will really help the softball players, for the parents and the players who have a lot of questions at this point as to how things are going to go and how they would normally go. That's how we're going to address things first. And then we'll go into how things have been affected by COVID. So I'm going to hand things over first to Dave, and we'll go from there.
Okay. All right, like I said, thanks for having us, Matt. Just a little background on our program. We've been around for, this is our 21st year now, 18 at the showcase level. So we have obviously quite a bit of experience at the showcase level. We have right now currently 10 teams in the organization. 5 of them are playing at the showcase level. The other 5 are youth teams, which, obviously feed the older teams eventually. All told, up to date, we've sent over 300 kids to college at this point, and still growing. And, it's probably, we're sending, 10, 15 kids per year out of the 5 different teams. We have a team for everybody. We have, our top team plays one of the best the best schedule in the country. We're at all the top showcases. Our second goal team, coached by Adam LaLiberty and Joey Wilson, they're not far behind us. They play a very highly competitive schedule as well. And then our other 3 teams after that, we have a good mix of Division 1, 2, and Division 3 players. So there's a spot for everybody. So we're well rounded for sure. I started the program with 1 team, and like I said, that was 21 years ago. We're fortunate enough, back in 2003, we had 2 pitchers that were throwing mid-60s at the time, and they pretty much put us on the map and got us to where we are now. Because to just try to start this from scratch to get to where we are now with the schedule, it's a 10-year process easily. So we're fortunate enough to have 2 kids that really put us on the map. I used to try to coach and do the recruiting myself, talk to the college coaches, coach the game at the same time. I found out really quick I couldn't do both. And that's when Bob Rossi came aboard. He's been with us for, I believe he's on year 16 now. And Bob does, he's the liaison between player and college coach. And he's, he basically is working the backstops with us, has all the connections. Elise has been with us for 4 years now, played for me prior to. One of the best coaches in the country, I consider, hands down. And she has her connections as well with college coaches. Obviously, she's friends with half of them, played with a bunch of them. So, right now, and I think it's more important than ever with what's going on, the uncertainty with the summer, with the recruiting calendar, the schedule, everything, you really need to be on a travel team right now that has very good college connections. If you're playing on a team right now in an organization that's not well connected with college coaches, and God forbid there's a shortened season, or God forbid no season, a lot of the recruiting is going to be our word. It's going to be college coaches taking our word on certain players. Sure. So it's very important at this time that you have a a good, long-standing relationship with a lot of college coaches, which, fortunately, all three of us do.
Mhm.
And, we're at a time right now, our program, we're overloaded in the class of 2022. So this is going to be an extremely busy summer for Bob and the rest of the staff. There's no doubt about it. So
Well, that's why you got a new Twitter account, because he's gonna have a busy summer.
exactly.
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
heard somebody laugh.
So Bob, how are you? Let's take a step back and pretend that none of this happened. Where would you be in the process right now? Because the girls would be playing high school softball, so you would be getting them ready for their travel ball season that would be coming up, right?
Yeah, right now, a big part of what we do here, we prepare a well-rounded athlete. And by that, I mean, I go back to the academic side and what they do in the classroom.
Mhm.
And I know in many cases, it's softball, throw it harder, run faster, and all that. That plays a very, very important part, obviously. But the academic side of things, we stress from right away from the first time that we get them. It's critical that they perform in the classroom because we want to make absolutely sure by the time they start in their freshman year, they get good grades. We don't want kids to be looking on the outside because they didn't perform in the classroom. In many cases, we've had parents come up to us and asked us for our help in regards to certainly trying to help some kids out. And we've talked to kids that put them in a better position academically. Speaking of the academic side of things, one of the things that it's mandatory on our team, and I think it should be mandatory on every team, whether it's our team, a local team, whatever,
Mhm.
should take their SATs twice in their sophomore year. Sean Rychek used to be at NC State at the time, was the coach at BU. And I asked him the following question. I said, Sean, why should they take them so early? He goes, Bob, in order to get to the high-end academic schools, if kids are looking that direction, post some SAT scores and get them out there. Now with the rule changes in regards to September 1 of their junior year, coaches can start making offers. Coaches want to see SAT scores combined with offers. Now, obviously, we're operating in an age right now. A lot of the SATs have been canceled. Some of the girls on our team were fortunate enough to take them early. Some weren't. But they're in a good place in that between the connections that Dave and I and Elise have, a lot of the high-end coaches, and I'm not going to get into name dropping and that type of thing, but we know everybody from SEC, ACC, D2, and our word carries a lot of weight. But again, the academic side of things in this process is critical to their eventual success. Because if they don't perform in the classroom, even though they may do well athletically, at least somewhat of a doubt in a coach's mind as to, how much do they dedicate themselves to the classroom? And do I want to take, if I got a choice between one kid and another, do I want to take a kid with a 2.0 or a 3.5? Fortunately, on our team, I'm proud to say this. The average GPA on our team is 4.0. I think it's the first time in the history of the program that's ever been done. We're extremely proud of that. And it's not because of the intellect of the three people that are here. We're pretty bright on the softball. The classroom, I don't think we'll pass a couple of courses. But
Well, I know when Elise was playing, she did bring that average down a little bit for us.
Well, I think it speaks to just making yourself more valuable, right? As a student athlete, right? You can have that athletic component, but now you open the door to being able to provide a coach with maybe if you go to a school that can slide in some academic money or a decent chunk of academic money, now you become that much more valuable, right?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing with the amount of money that each school has, I think that's something that we also should address in the same comments or the same discussion as academics. If you're able to tell a college coach what your SAT score is to be able to get academic money, being able to put that in a package with also with athletic money is much more appealing. You can get 4 kids for the price of 1 scholarship versus that kid that is not going to get an academic scholarship. And the amount of scholarships that each school has is very different. I'm surprised every time I have a conversation with a college coach that they're not fully funded. You'll be shocked with the amount of schools that are not fully funded. Fully funded is 12 full scholarships. I know a lot of Northeast schools, Division I, that don't even have 8. And I think that some of the expectation of playing on any travel ball organization is they expect that if they're the best one on the team, they should get a full ride. And realistically, especially, we won't even get into the corona and how it's going to affect recruiting just yet, but let's just say corona didn't happen. There are, on Power 5 schools, they're carrying 21 kids at minimum on a roster. Now with COVID, we have up to, people are going to be showing on rosters 32 or 35 kids on a roster. So in order to get 12 scholarships to, let's say, 25 kids is impossible. So to make you more appealing to a college coach is if you can say, hey, I have a 1,300. Well, they don't have to go back. A lot of the higher athletic schools won't even have to go back to the academic department to know that they will qualify for some type of academic aid. I will say this, not all schools are able to package, but that is definitely a question when talking to a coach on the phone September 1 of your junior year, when you're eligible to communicate with them. That should be a question that is asked. Are you able to package scholarship money and academic money?
And then going up until that point, you want to make sure that you're being proactive. So when you do have that conversation, it can go in a much more positive direction than the other way, right? As a safety net. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the other thing that I wanted to make sure that everybody understood was, speaking to that academic piece, this is kind of uncharted territory from the virtual learning standpoint. And it's very easy for kids to slack off and kind of go through the motions thinking that it maybe isn't going to affect their GPA or their grades. And that's the last thing you want to do is try to bust your teacher's chops with something like that, where you're not getting your work done, because that can definitely influence your future in terms of college and stuff like that. And you definitely have the time to get your stuff done.
Yeah.
There's not
I would
much
have to assume that, I'm not trying to say that virtual learning is easy. My mom's a first grade teacher and she complains about it every day. It's not easy for teachers or these kids, and definitely their parents who have never been teachers, to try to get their kid to sit down and do their work. But I can't imagine it's harder than going into the normal school day, right? So take advantage of maybe this small leap to get ahead and get better grades, versus when you be in school and it'd probably be a little bit harder. You might have more tests, you might have more quizzes, more grades to put in, where I have to assume, I could be wrong, but I have to assume that this is a slight advantage to be getting good grades in this semester.
Right.
You would think.
Sorry, Dave, what'd you say?
I just said, yes, you would think.
Yeah, and the other thing is, you don't know what that teacher is going through at their house, because they're also quarantined, right? So they could have 2 young kids, and like I'm doing that right now. Luckily, I have someone that can come over and help me. But the stuff, taking care, it gives a great appreciation to teachers, because having 2 little kids trying to go through grades 3 and 4. Now, if I was having to provide high school education to a bunch of other kids, the last thing I want to do is have somebody who I need to chase for work or be a slacker. So the main message is just make sure you get your stuff done, and you can take advantage of this opportunity now to be on the good side of your teachers versus the other way, which is kind of just saying, okay, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore, because you really don't have that many weeks left of the school year anyway at this point.
Yeah.
Right.
And to Dave's point about, which is totally accurate as much as funny, that I probably was one of the ones to bring the GPA down on the team. I was part of a less collective put together conversation in recruiting back in 2008. Okay. And this was a topic of conversation then. And I was like, okay, I get it. Everyone in my family are teachers. Like, I get the pressure to get good grades and all that. But if anyone can talk about academics and it actually seem important, it probably is me, who didn't take it as seriously. And the importance of, if, I'm very lucky where I ended up, and I'm very proud, and I don't regret anywhere that I went through this whole college process and everything that I did. But I only can imagine if I had better test scores or I did have a GPA, what other doors would have opened for me, right? You just don't know. And I think with the September 1st of your junior year being the time where you can talk to college coaches, it's your sophomore year that is extremely important, right? It's your sophomore year because that's when the coaches are learning most about you. That's all you have is that sophomore year, right? Your freshman year, sure, but it's your freshman year. But that sophomore year is what the college coaches look back on September 1 going into your junior year because you're not a junior yet, right? So that year is very important to take good classes, to stay focused, and to get a good GPA that year.
Sure, definitely. So now that we've kind of talked about how important the academic piece is, where do you three kind of see this all going? As far as, have you had any tournaments canceled? Have you had anything rescheduled? Any insight on that?
Well, so far, our season is we're scheduled to start, I believe it's June 10th down in New Jersey. I haven't got any word on that, but the weekend after that, which is Pennsbury, that's a 45-year running tournament. So, that one's been around for a while. They're the first ones to come out, and they've actually postponed the date. They're going to be running in the second week of August now. I've spoken to Boulder IDT, which is probably the biggest next to PGF. I've spoken to him this week, and as of right now, everything's on for that. And the PGF Nationals out in California, same thing. Everything is still on. They did give June 1st as dates to give you a better idea of what possibly could happen. But, as of right now, we've had one tournament that's been postponed, not canceled. So we're expecting to go and get something going by hopefully June 1st. We can be out there practicing and get ready for the season.
And that's going to come up very quick too.
Yeah, it
So,
is.
yeah, and making sure that getting through the process of getting the schoolwork done first, but then also maintaining skill work, right, to the best of their ability, because the last thing you want to do is be going to your first tournament and now you're not ready to play, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and keeping up with your coaches on your specific teams and doing what you can, and checking in to kind of make sure that you're not getting too rusty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've
being
been
ready
having
to go
meetings
when
all
you
week
start
long.
to have.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Matt.
No, that's what I was saying. I was saying checking in with your coaches, and I know you guys have been doing that.
Yeah, we've been having meetings all week long. We had a team meeting yesterday, same thing via Zoom, and individuals today where we talked to each kid about what we expect from them. Starting today, because I guess Massachusetts has already canceled high school. I don't know about the rest of them. I just heard Mass did. So, the way we look at it right now, there's going to be no high school season. So they're property of Rhode Island Thunder from here going forward until November something. So, they're under our thumb now, and, we're giving them what they should be doing, making things mandatory where, we can't really do that in high school season. They're playing high school ball, but now that there is no high school ball, we're going to take the reins and let them know what we expect from them as far as writing the college coaches, getting themselves mentally and physically prepared to play by June 1st. So yeah, we're just starting that process this week.
We kind of gave a deadline of June 1st. Assume that we will get going June 1st. I'm sure a lot of people will think that's probably optimistic, but we rather be optimistic than get caught in a situation where we're not ready to play. Especially we have 10 2022s and 2 2023s. So we have 13, 14 kids that need to stay up and be able to play this summer to get recruited. Some of the things that we have given in an individual basis. We make our kids keep journals. It's really easy to be able to write down in a journal. It's no one's looking at it, just yourself. You can share it however you want. You can write whatever you want, but it's easy to look back 2 weeks and say, I only wrote down 3 things that I did, whether it's bullet points or specific workout regimens or what they're keeping track of eating. It's obviously, I feel like I'm going to the refrigerator every 2 seconds. So, little things like that. A journal, it's not about being right or wrong. It's just, I don't know about you guys, but I'm constantly saying, what day is it? I'm not sure what day it is right now, and that's the easiest way to be able to do that. And then it also is easy for me to send out a group me and tell the girls that, I have homework. We're going to do homework. It's due by Friday. I had the pitchers and catchers this Friday. They have some things that are due, but all to stay on track for June 1st. I think this is a good enough time as any to kind of talk about social media a little bit.
Sure.
And the impact that it's had. So one of the things that we talk about in our journals is, how much we're posting. So I would say definitely in January, I started telling the girls, or I started posting more on Twitter specifically of my hitters and that I work with on the team or off the team. And then having our girls kind of post a quick video advertising themselves, telling them what grad year they're in, what position they play, just be able to get themselves out there. Now, and I'm not the only one who felt like this, but I'm sure a lot of people that viewed it was like, okay, this is a little bit over the top. You're posting a lot about your kids. And in the beginning, it was tough for me to continually post our kids. It felt like we were pushing the kids in everyone's face, but I'll tell you what, we did a lot of it then, and now it's the norm. Right. And now we're just continuing what we did in January. Social media has become so much more important now that camps aren't being able to we don't know what tournaments are going to be played. We don't know what camps are going to be played. There's a lot of rumors on what camps are allowed or what's not allowed. I did hear that SEC schools are not allowed to do camps until July 31st. And being a very high athletic conference, softball specifically, I'm sure a lot of the mid-major conferences and lower are going to follow in their footsteps. So not having those outlets to show your individual skills, social media has had even bigger presence. For pitchers, I've been telling them 1 a week. For infielders, outfielders, catchers, trying to do at least 2 a week, working out. Their guidelines are workouts, hitting and defense, or offense and defense. I really don't want them to feel like they're posting just to post. I think in January it was kind of like to show progression, to show what they're working on. As a hitting coach, it's really important for me to advertise to college coaches that it's not just what I'm teaching, and it's the product of what I'm teaching. It's that they have high IQs. So when they make their posts, I try to make sure a lot of them get passed through me, and we try to make sure that their captions are on point to certain terminologies that might be taught at other programs, or just to show that they actually understand their swing. A lot from now until they graduate college at whatever program they end up, their swings will change, but to kind of show their high IQ level. That's the goal for these. Some of the things that are frowned upon that we've learned over the years is college coaches really don't want to look at cut videos. They don't want to look at cut videos, and they don't want to look at videos that are longer than 2 minutes. They have hundreds of emails to go through. Social media is a little bit different, but they want to be able to see something and watch it, say yay or nay, look into their profile a little bit more, learn what travel ball team they play for, see what year they're at, and be done with it. Put them on a list, not put them on a list, just to get noticed. But I see a lot of other programs that are tagging colleges. We don't allow our kids to tag colleges. I know that I've talked to a few head coaches or assistant coaches, and they don't like that that is being done, simply because it's you're telling everybody that you're only interested in certain schools, for one. Two, the order in which you put them also seems a little suspicious, right? It's not just who you're tagging, it's the order. So let's say you're a 2021 right now, and you're not even a 2022. You can talk to college coaches right now, and you're on the phone talking to Sacred Heart. You're on the phone talking to BU, whoever, right? And then you post, let's throw PC in there as well. And you are on the phone with all three of those schools, and you want to go to all of them, right? Whose name are you going to post first when you post that video? That means something. That means something. That's your subconscious thinking of who you're thinking of first. And a lot of coaches notice that. So we don't allow our kids to do it. We simply just want their pages to be used as free advertisement. And if a coach likes them, they like them. If they don't, they don't. But fortunately, with the reputation that we have in our organization, when they go and play, that's when they're going to get the most notice. Hopefully, we just spark an interest starting now on social media. I do think that maybe someone that might watch this that thinks, well, I'm not playing in tournaments, showcases, and I'm a 2022, and how am I going to get noticed? I still agree. I don't think that you should be tagging colleges. I don't. Maybe you can DM them directly, because no one knows. They absolutely cannot contact you back, but maybe that will show a little bit of interest. It's not illegal on your end. The college coach just can't respond unless it's about a camp or clinic. They can forward you camp information, but maybe that's the way that you show that you have direct interest, because they can't see who else you're talking to. I wouldn't suggest doing it all the time. There's definitely a fine line. I mean, I had some of just my friends that are not even around softball so much anymore that are like, oh my gosh, you post so much about your kids, like, constantly. And so you also don't want to feel like you're doing that by DMing college coaches, right? There is a happy medium, and I don't think there are any guidelines with this. This is new, unmarked territory. I think it was starting to climb anyway, and that's why we advised our kids to do it in January. But now with Corona, it's definitely escalated, and it's escalated fast. So,
Elise, really quick, just because I want a little bit of clarification myself, so I'm sure there'll be somebody else watching. But when you say cut videos, do you mean like not continuous, like taking the highlights of
correct.
and tweeting those versus just kind of letting it roll?
Correct. So even though the letting it roll is longer videos, and this isn't all the time, there is a time and place to be able to do cut videos. If you're trying to make a minute-long video and pack as much as you can in a minute time, where it's just swing after ground ball, and you want to show the coach, maybe you're emailing them directly and you just want to give them the overall picture. That's not a bad thing, but a lot can be told about you taking a ground ball and booting it, right? It doesn't mean that you have bad fundamentals. It's how you recover. I'm not talking about in-game, like your body language or stuff like that. I'm just talking about the basic fundamentals of how your body moves. You could hit a pop-up, but a coach could say, oh, that's an easy fix, just a little bit of timing here or there. Or if I know what she's working on now, I know I can work with that. If I have her every day, I can fix that. A lot of kids think that, I see this a lot, kids hitting off a tee straight into a bonet, and they clock it at 70 miles an hour. That ball went straight at the pitcher's shins. Like, you got a single at 70 miles an hour. You can hit a single at 40 miles an hour, right? Like, you want to be able to advertise for yourself, to be able to show how far you can hit the ball, how hard you can hit the ball. I get that. But give yourself, show everything about yourself. It's not about just hitting the ball 70 miles an hour at the pitcher's shins. It's also not about hitting a home run at 70 miles an hour that's 250 or whatever. I mean, that's great, but they want to see the mistakes in there as well.
Sure.
But not if it's going to be a 3-minute video, of course.
Yeah, no, you don't want super highlights all the time.
Right. It's
Right.
not realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it gives the coach a much better idea as to how you're understanding, making adjustments too on the next play or the next.
And I think that, like, if I'm watching that as a college coach, and I have done that in the past, and I see a mistake, yes, you see the recovery, but you also, to me, that shows a confident athlete. Like, obviously she's not making them that much if she doesn't care to show it.
Oh,
You
that's
know?
good.
Yeah.
Dave and Bob, what has been your experience in terms of how do you advise kids in terms of their list? How long you hear some kids say, I have a list 100 schools long that I want to reach out to. I hear other kids say, well, I have one and one only. Where do you both fall on that, or with your experience over the years?
You get it, Bob?
Yeah, I'll get it. We have a wide range of student athletes on our team. Generally, the list will tend to get shorter the more they elevate into their junior and senior year. We like to keep a lot of things. Our minimums in regards to writing schools is anywhere between 50 and 75 young. When I talking young, I mean like as freshmen. You cast out a broad net because, quite frankly, many freshmen, they don't know what they want to do, they don't know where they want to go, and they don't know who they want to play for. So in order to get love, you have to give love. So you have to start early in the process. You have to send out the net, make it as big as it can possibly be. And then what we end up doing is we keep the net fairly full, especially in freshman and sophomore year. As we go to the peak in your junior and senior year, obviously you're cutting it down. Those that keep their list very short and tight early are losing out. Because in many cases, unless you're the best pitcher in the country, and you want to go to this particular school, you better keep your options open as to other places you want to go. So therefore, even when they get into their sophomore and junior year, their list is still fairly large in their sophomore year. The contacts that Dave and I at least have are quite extensive. But by the same token, though, it'll be up to the student athlete in the end to decide between 10 schools, 15 schools, and make an educated decision as to where they want to go. The other thing too is when we travel, and I'd like to say this now,
Sure.
We call them business trips, but in many of the areas of the country that we travel, they have the opportunity to start looking at schools, visiting schools, going there, taking tours, big school. Yeah, you're not going to be able to see the coach, but they have a certain innate feeling when they get on campus as to whether or not it's the right thing to do, wrong thing to do. So we make them utilize their time as much as possible in a progressive way that puts them in the best position to succeed. One quick thing on social media that I want to make absolutely sure we do cover, in the age that we live in and the accessibility of everything, and I'm technologically challenged in regards to a lot of things, but the one thing that parents have to be aware of is this, and specifically players, students, and kids is this: whatever they post on Facebook, you better make sure grandma and grandpa aren't going to be embarrassed by taking a look at it, because college coaches are going to be even more critical now, and it's accessible to them. Don't give them a reason to take you off a list. So clean up your Facebook, and Elise can get into this because we do a lot of policing on our end in regards to what kids can and cannot do. And it's critically important that they take care of that business first.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in charge of all the social media. So I have Dave runs mostly the Facebook for our page, but outside of Facebook, which a lot of kids aren't using nowadays, Instagram and Twitter are huge. So I am the director. I run my personal page, Hops Hitting, I oversee. I have Thunder, our Thunder. I have Thunder 14U National. I have Dave's showcase tournaments. And now I help Rossi oversee his Twitter. So I have 6 social media accounts of Twitter and at least Twitter at the very least. So you might not, this has happened in the past. When I first came on, I didn't have all these pages. I just had maybe 3, I didn't have 6. And girls on my team, I go to practice and be like, I don't like what you posted last. Like, I don't like it. and I'm 23 and I don't like it. So I think you should probably take it down. I'm not telling Dave, I'm not telling a college coach, remove before someone sees it. And you know what they do is, obviously someone will be like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. It's not a big deal, whatever, they remove it. Other people just delete me. I have 6 social medias. You got to delete all 6 of them, right? I'm going to see you somewhere, right? And so that's kind of what I say to the girls is like, you cannot hide unless you don't want to see one of these pages. And they're all pages that all of our kids follow. So unless you don't want to see what I post, you have to follow. The other thing, going back quickly to the lists, the comments on the list. So first of all, yes, broad is always better going off. I agree with absolutely everything that Rossi said. I'm going to be very careful with how I say this because it's a very tricky subject to get into. One, you really need to do your due diligence with at least your top 45, right? A lot of people just put schools on that list, put them on. And when you're a freshman, I get that. And I get that they're just looking at the name. Like if they're the name, if they're ever on ESPN, if they're ever have a big football team, obviously you like them. But when you get to your top 45, you have to give me an individual reason why that's on your list, right? And I know that seems big, but there's over 260 schools in Division I and even more in D2 and D3. So that's really not that much. If you have 45 schools on your list and you have over 260 schools in Division I softball, it's less than half. You need to do your due diligence on why they're on your list. The second part, which is the tricky part to talk about, because like Dave said, I have a lot of friends that are college coaches, okay? And I don't mean to upset them, but this is the truth, and this is it's to help kids get recruited, especially if they don't have people that are guiding them like we hope to do for our kids. This is a business. At the end of the day, this is a business. It's to get you recruited. We don't have a professional baseball league that's comparable, or we don't have that in softball that's comparable to baseball, right? So when girls are going to school, they're thinking about playing for the next 4 years and getting the best education, which I'm not going to speak on like a percentage of what is for baseball, but you could go to almost any Division I school and somehow have a good fee to get into some type of level of MLB and MLB. So we don't have that. So when I call this a business, it's because there's lots of girls that want to play, and there's a place for everyone. D1, 2, 3, NEIA, JUCO. There's a place for everyone to play. And there's no shame in what level, because there are a lot of D2 schools that could beat D1 schools and all the way down to D3. Now, when you are getting into the business side and you're understanding that I'm not going to name colleges because that's just not fair, but there are certain schools in certain conferences that always are continually competing against each other, right? And every conference, that's in high school, that's in any sport. So when you have your lists and you narrow them down too much and there's not multiple from each conference, you're less attractive to a college coach in that conference. Not necessarily. It's not even necessarily conference. It's state, who maybe BU and BC, because they're right in Boston, right? They compete with some of the same athletes. So, without trying to hurt any feelings, I know college coaches are like, no, this is a family and we have a culture. And other college coaches, this is a lot more business-like. We have bigger rosters. We don't get as close. To each his own. I'm not discrediting any of their programs. But when you are making a list, don't remove someone off of a list or just because you don't like them. We can use that to help you get scholarships to compete against those other schools. So if you're going into meeting and saying, oh, who else are you talking to? Are we in your top 5? Yes, you're in my top 5. Who else are you talking to? You can't say someone from D1 and then say, and you're talking to that D1 school and then list the rest of them that are in D3. That doesn't make you very competitive. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah. Don't give away all our secrets either.
Yeah. It's you have to make sure that you're doing it the right way. That's all.
I think that in speaking to the time we are in now, you really need to have a wider net, because all of a sudden you're anticipating going into a school that's going to graduate X number of players, right? And now all of those players are now going to be stuck in a grade that they weren't going to be in, right? So
Right.
give yourself as many avenues currently that you can, because now all of a sudden those situations could be different. Could you speak to that? I don't know who would want to take that one in terms of
Yeah,
what the exact.
no doubt about it. I mean, absolutely right. But we do a good job of monitoring the list. Like before every tournament, our kids are required to give us a list of schools that they've written to. We don't want a kid with a 920 SAT writing Stanford. I mean, you're wasting your time. You're wasting the coach's time. You know what I mean? So we want to make sure. It's the same thing. If we don't think a player is, has the talent to win at Oklahoma, maybe you can dream early in your career, but once you're in your sophomore year, we're going to be straight up with those kids. You probably shouldn't be targeting, these schools in the SEC. Kind of bring them down to earth a little bit, that sort of thing. But we stay on top of that stuff. I think it's going to be extremely tricky the next couple of years with schools bringing back seniors, the amount of incoming freshmen. I heard that, like a school like Alabama, all their seniors want to come back. They're bringing in 7 freshmen. You've got a roster of 33 players now. So, now you have to do your due diligence now more so than ever. And it's going to take, you really need connections now where, you have Bob Rossi who can call, Pat Murphy at Alabama and say, Pat, what's the deal? How many seniors you got coming back? How many freshmen? What do you have for scholarship money? Because I tell you, it's going to get really tricky the next couple of years.
That's 4.
And I think for the kids that are watching that or will watch this that maybe don't have the connections like a Bob Rossi to be able to do that, then you're most likely going to be on September 1 making phone calls to college coaches when you're allowed to. And that's a perfectly good question to ask. When you get in touch, when you're able to get in touch with a college coach on September 1 going into your junior year, some of the questions to ask are, and I'm just going to be direct with them. You ask them in the correct way, but are you fully funded? How many kids do you typically have on a roster? How many incoming kids do you usually have? On your own time, you can look at the transfer rate and that kind of thing, but because you don't want to ask them that, but you can kind of ask them those questions when it becomes September 1st. Because the truth of the matter is, if you don't have a connection like a Bob Rossi to be able to reach out to, then you're probably going to have to wait till September 1 to talk to them anyway, right? There's no way to be able to communicate before that, to be able to ask those questions. But I think this is a good enough time to talk about like the specific, more so about the roster size as it relates to COVID, right? Like I know Dave touched on it, you touched on it a little bit, Matt, and that they're going to get bigger. I think one of the things that kids think, because the NCAA announced that they can get a 5th year or can get an unblanket waiver for another year. That doesn't mean that all colleges are doing that. Rossi, am I correct by saying that no Ivy schools are doing that?
Correct.
No Ivy schools are allowing that. So
Wisconsin either.
right. So, and I'm sure they're going to come up more. Like there are going to be a lot of budget cuts. There's going to be a lot of things that are changing. So, to assume, we talked about this before, we got on the phone, Matt, just on like the what ifs from COVID. And I think that problem is that there are so many what ifs. It's really hard to live in that time. And no one likes the unknown at all when it comes to anything. I think the best thing you can do right now is be active on social media. You're probably in front of your computer more or your phone more hours than you were before. And you can check in more with schools. You can educate yourself more with schools for the educational purpose, for the class size purpose, the campus life, the things outside of softball you can educate yourself on to help get that 45 list of schools that you actually like. And then when you have someone like a Rossi or you are September 1st, that's when you are able to ask more direct questions with those college coaches, because you can straight up say, how many kids before COVID were you typically having on your roster? How many do you expect? And I think the number is going to be higher for sure, but it's not across the board. If you had one senior graduating, and let's say they could take them back, but they chose not to, your roster's not affected at all, right?
Right.
Your scholarship money might be a little bit. I'm saying in that next year. It depends how how the whole cycle goes, but with the budget cuts, with other things that we're in a time where this has never happened. So we don't know what every institution is individually going to decide, and we don't know what the NCAA or the NFCA is going to weigh in on. We just don't know. So, a lot of these questions are hard to answer, but the best thing that you can do is get better every day, be good on social media, have good grades, email your list, and educate the college coaches with who you are. So we talked about lists. I don't think we got into what actually is on emails. You want in the subject line to say who you play for. Then in the bulk, in the body, you want to say, hi, coach. Make sure that if you're mass sending emails, you do not get the wrong coach's name. Okay. It happens so much, but you really have to be good about double checking that. And you also don't want to just say, hey, coach, because then it looks very generic. You don't want to write 3 or 5 paragraphs. You want to say, my name is, I graduate in this year. I play these positions. I play for this team. I'm writing to you to congratulate you on a 100th win. Obviously, we can't do that right now, but I'm congratulating you on this season. I'm sorry about your loss in your season. You guys had a good start. Blah, 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 blah about them. That actually shows that you care about their program and you educate it. That's different from everyone else. And then you say, I just want to take this time to say that even though this summer, we're hoping for the best, this is my summer schedule. I'm very interested in your program. These are my SAT scores, my GPA, done. It's very simple, to the point, based on facts. And those are the things that you can do right now that are not different, or they are exactly the same with COVID or without COVID, right? And I think when you're 14 years old, 15 years old, that's what you have to be focused on, and let your parents stress out maybe a little bit about the rest of it, right? About the financial piece or that, that's their job, is to worry about you. It's not the 15-year-old's job to be able to stress about things they can't control. It's their job to be able to get better every day and market themselves and advertise for themselves as best they can. And that's being appropriate on social media and posting good videos to advertise for themselves.
Right. And I think a couple other things that you can control too is a lot of the coaches, maybe not the head coach, but the assistant coach might have a social media account themselves, and following them and looking to see what they post and what they teach and how they go about doing that will allow you an insight into their program without even having to talk to the coach. And another thing that we have access to is YouTube, or even going back and looking at their schedule. They might have links to some of their games to see how they play, how their coaches are coaching the players. Are they screamers? Are they, ripping kids a new one? Are they teaching and stuff like that? And that's stuff that you can do on your own without even having to talk to the the coach. And that's, you've got plenty of free time right now to be able to do that stuff.
Absolutely. And if you have a 30-second or a minute clip where it is cut up and it's your best plays or some great video that you have, I always tell our kids to pin that, make that the first video on your profile. So if you posted something and they're like, oh, I'm interested, what is this? Then when they do click on your page, the first thing they see is something that you really want to make sure they see. So that's just one quick little thing that I've learned since January, understanding how Twitter works. I wasn't even on Twitter before December. So that's one thing I've learned that I think has helped.
I think, Bob and Dave, unless you want to jump back in, one thing we can do now is start to open up questions, because people can type those into the chat or the Q&A boxes, just so we're not sitting here in dead silence waiting for them. So
Okay.
if anybody else wants to reach out, then, or send anything, then you can
Okay.
do that now.
So how exactly do they do that? Just so that if the kids don't
Yeah, so
know.
there's a chat button or a Q&A button. You can send them on either one. And also this whole thing will be on YouTube in case somebody missed something or came in late or had an issue with the link. So that way you can go back and rewatch it. And there's also 9 other or 8 other ones, because we missed the first one, 9 other videos that you can, if anything is interests you, then you can check that out. One thing I didn't get a chance to jump in with is hopefully everybody's doing their overhand throwing programs that we worked on
Yes.
a little bit this winter, because that's the other thing from a trainer and a physical therapist standpoint that you don't want to do is also go back to practicing and playing and get hurt because you haven't built up your swing or your arm from the repetitions you would have normally had in high school. Now you go back and you're so excited that you're playing and practicing that you go from 0 to 100, and then now you're out for part of the season. So make sure that you're doing all the little things that will allow you to be ready to go when it's time.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a question, Elise, on whether you should send videos on YouTube as well as Twitter.
Yeah. I think that making a YouTube clip and then posting it on major forums is probably better. I just don't think that, just think about who you're trying to appeal to. You're trying to appeal to a college coach that ranges in age. And I just don't think that there's many YouTube followers for coaches as there are Twitter and right now. I could be wrong. But I do see a lot of YouTube clips being posted on other forums like Twitter.
Yeah.
Oops.
Now, don't you think everybody should have like a 60-second video attached to their emails that they're sending out to college coaches with their schedule?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Should they have
Right.
a video that's attached to that email?
Yeah. So on top of what you're writing in the body and keeping it short and sweet, when I was coaching at Hofstra, there was this one girl that was from Long Island. She wanted to come there so bad. And she would email me literally every day, like to the point where it was like, how could you forget her name, right? But I had no idea when I was going to softball fields who she was because I didn't know what her face was. I didn't know her number. She didn't put her number. She's put her team. So I could go to her team, but I didn't know where she was, right? And I had to try to figure it out. So one of the things that I advise some of our kids to do is, for the most part, all teams make a brochure and they do a profile picture of them that they put with their information on the brochure when they attend. Take that picture and attach it to every email they send, kind of like a signature. So you have your name, you have whatever you have, and you also attach that. And then you can attach a very small clip also. A lot of athletes are visual learners, and a lot of college coaches were once athletes. So you have to assume that there are that they're more visual, and that will help. I mean, I know it's something as stupid as I went to camp, like a 3-day camp, and this girl wore a neon pink bow all 3 days. Like you could not miss her, right? So whether or not I thought she was good or not, I watched her because that pink bow was always in my face, right?
Well, I remember Patty Borges at tryouts. She wore the tie-dye shirt. I think
right.
That's good out.
And that's what we're trying to do, like not just for on emails, but how do you separate yourself not only as a 2022, 2023, that is the next recruiting class. How do you separate yourself from everyone else your own age, but then by position? And how do you do that without picking up a softball, not picking up a glove or a bat? And that's how you email. That's how you do social media. It's separate yourself from everyone else.
So there's another question on, with the COVID-19,
Yeah.
with all these classes, at what class will this trickle down effect stop affecting? At what class does it stop affecting? I know it's going to have effect on the 2021s, 2022s. Do you see it straightening out for the 2023 class?
No.
No.
I don't think it
Do
will
you
change.
think it's a 4-year?
4-year deal.
Yeah, it's 4-year. You have to
Really?
wait until the kids that were freshmen, not actually take that back. It's 5 years. You have to take it back from the freshman. Okay, so the way that this works, you get 4 years in college. If you are to redshirt, you can redshirt 2 more years. So you cannot play more than 6 years in college. Now with this, you have the opportunity to play well, not play, but be a part of a program for 7 years. So depending on how each school uses that and how and what kind of scholarship they were given or what type of academic package they were given, it's at least 5 years, right? Now the Ivies aren't taking on anybody new, but I don't know if just because the Ivies aren't taking back the seniors, I don't know what it's going to be for the freshmen. Does that mean the freshmen can't? I don't know. We don't know as much. We don't know. This is very much like the NCAA said it's allowed. So then each institution can now figure it out on its own. And then there's going to be more things that the NCAA are going to have to weigh on. And there's going to be more bylaws that come into effect. But I definitely, to answer the question, I don't think it will be until that freshman class that's there right now. So the 2019 class, if they redshirt, that's 5 years from now. That's when it's going to completely be gone from any program. Let's say an institution gets no budget cuts, unrealistic, but no budget cuts, no roster changes. Everyone can come back. Everyone keeps their same scholarship. They get donors, they get all this. Everything is peachy. They have 35 kids on a roster, 5 years minimum.
There are far too many that are naturally assuming that all seniors are coming back and all seniors are going to be getting money. Right now, and that's a misconception, because right now these colleges are going to be able to choose. I only want 2 of these seniors coming back. I don't want 4. I only want 2. So I think we paint a grim picture when we say all these seniors are coming back. No, they're not. No, they're not. Some of them may want to get a job. Some might have to intern. Some the coach don't want. That type of thing. So just because they have 6 seniors doesn't automatically assume all 6. They're not all Alabama.
I agree.
Pardon?
I said I agree 100%.
So they're going to be able to call out their program, and after 4 years of putting up with that particular individual, the coach and the player mutually decide to part ways. So right now you're kind of dealing with an unknown in regards to what coaches are going to do, how many they're going to keep. But to E's point, she's absolutely correct. It's going to trickle down for at least 5 years.
And that's also communication with your coach, because you also might have transfers where academically a player might graduate from a school, but now they have another year of eligibility and go transfer to another school for a graduate program, where you could have them coming in, where that wouldn't have normally happened at a specific school, correct?
Yes.
But if they do transfer it to that other school,
Yep.
that links them with that 12 scholarships that they'll have at a fully funded program.
Right.
Yeah.
You might have a person coming to your position who's transferring in who wouldn't have graduated this year, right? It would have been done, but they have the extra year of athletic eligibility
Correct.
and then going. So I think the main point is just you got to make sure that communication is open with the coach, right?
Yep.
Absolutely.
I think that, the transfer portal has opened up the opportunity to be able to transfer more easily. And my first instinct is to say that because of COVID, the transfer rate will go up. But the transfer rate is already so high. I don't really see it going up anymore the more I think about it, because of 2 reasons. One, the uncertainty that college coaches have right now with all financial decisions. And 2, when you go on the portal, your coach knows. So it's not like you can take a chance on another program. Once you get on there, yes, you can still stay at that college that you were at, but you could also go back. You could also transfer out. Your coach sees that. And so that's kind of a distrust right there. And yeah, as a second thought, I just don't see that going up because it's already so high, and the uncertainty for so many financial reasons for the student athlete and for the coach. Unsure what anything is going to be like.
Sure. Did you see the question about the communication with assistant coaches? Because that's on social.
Yes,
media.
I was gonna respond to that. Yeah, you should definitely be writing both head coach and assistant coaches. I have a database with every Division 1, 2, 3 junior colleges, volunteers, assistants, and head coaches. I have every single email address. There's probably 3,000 of them. Whoever wrote that, if they want to email me, I will send them that database.
That's what you're seeing on Twitter too. The assistant coaches are kind of the ones that have a little bit more of a social media presence too, in
Right.
terms of posting things and how they're, or hitting lessons, or just what different videos and clips like that, interacting with them there can help spark an interest.
I would
Yeah.
address the head coach, and then I would CC the assistants.
Yep.
Because usually what ends up happening is you send an email to a college coach, and then the college coach forwards it to the assistant coach that responds to all emails. So that way they can just say, hey, respond to the email we got. You know what I mean? So it's all on one email, all on one thread.
Sure.
Mhm.
Does that, anybody have any other questions before we close it out?
I don't think there were any other questions up there. No.
No.
Do we have anything else that we want to share specifically with COVID?
Here's one. We CC the assistant coaches. If we CC the assistant coaches, should we address all the coaches?
My instinct says just the head coach.
What's that?
My instinct says just to respond to the head coach.
What, when emailing?
Well, if she's saying that, if you, so like if we're your assistants, she emails you, says, hey, Coach Dave, or she says, and then CC's Rossi and I, would she say, hey, Coach Dave, Elise, and Rossi, or just hey, Coach Dave? My instinct says just the head coach,
I agree.
because they're the boss.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know a lot of the assistant coaches are the ones checking emails too.
I just think it's
And doing the recruiting sometimes.
Right. I think that if you are to send a direct email to the assistant coach because they had contact with you at a tournament, that's different. But if you don't really have any contact with the coach, or you're still not able to communicate with them yet, I would address the head coach, CC the assistants, and then say, hey, head coach only, because they're the boss. They're the one that they have to like you. Even if the assistant coach loves you, the head coach needs to love you, because they're the ones that are on top of the budget.
This is true.
All right, guys, all set?
I think so.
Yeah, thanks, Bob and Dave and
Thank you
Elise.
very much.
I appreciate you coming on. And then tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, same time, Elise and I will be talking about hitting. So that should be an interesting discussion. So if any of you have any questions who are still on now that you want to send to us ahead of time, so we can address them, then please send them over. You have our contacts. But again, thanks again for coming on board. I know it was very informative, and
Thank you, Matt.
got a lot out of it. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Yep.
Take care, guys.
Bye now.
Bye.